Hey everyone, it's Christian from FCP Euro here, the staff writer and resident Porsche nerd. And today we're at Lime Rock Park to take you through the ins and outs and everything you need to know about buying the first water-cooled Porsche 911, the 996. Today we're on the FCP Euro Proving Grounds to walk you through each variant of the 996, take you through the different interiors, engine options, suspension packages, brakes, transmissions, the whole lot. So before we get into the 996, you're going to need to know a little bit about the history and how we got here. After a lot of success in racing in the 80s for Porsche, the 90s brought about some money troubles. The 911 was old and needed replacement. What they came up with was this, the 996. So what is the 996? Well, the 996 is the fifth generation of Porsche's 911, and it is the first to carry a water-cooled engine. They were offered between late 1998 and early 2005, and were broken down into several different normally aspirated and turbocharged models. The first run of cars, named the 996.1.1 or Mark 1, were offered between 1999 and 2001. So the 996.1 consisted of two basic models. You had your Carrera and your Carrera 4. Your Carrera was your standard rear-wheel drive model with the M96.01 3.4 liter flat six engine. The Carrera 4 was the same exact car, just fitted with all-wheel drive. The 996.2 started production in 2002 and ran through the 2005 model year. Under that banner is the Carrera 4, the Targa 4, the Carrera 4S, the Turbo, the GT3, and the GT2. So as Porsche developed the 996, they realized they were going to need a couple more models than just the basic normally aspirated units. So they ended up with the successor to the 993 Turbo, the 996 Turbo, and they continued on their GT program, which started with the 993, bringing about the first GT3 to America and the GT2 to America. Back in the day and even now, the 996 had a few competitors. Up against it are really the C5 Corvette, the E36 and E46 BMW M3, and just about every other German coupe, sports coupe of that era. The earliest 996 Carreras, the 3.4 liters, the .1s, are going to command anywhere between $18,000 to $30,000, depending on condition, mileage, and options. Your 996.2 Carrera 4Ss are going to start in the high 20s and carry up to the mid 40s. Your turbos are going to cost you anywhere between $45,000 to $80,000. Your GT3, that's going to sit anywhere north of 80 grand. Your GT2, they are incredibly exclusive and are going to cost well over $200,000. So how do you know you're looking at a 996? Well, the easiest way to do so is to check out the headlights. Every other 911 from the 60s through on to the current generation 992 uses a round headlight. For the 996, Porsche decided to move the turn signals up next to the headlights and make them into one unit. Differentiating between the 996.1 and the 996.2 is fairly easy. The biggest difference between the two is the headlights. Porsche included an amber turn signal on all 996.1s. When they went to the 996.2, they changed the headlight shape just a bit, integrating the turn signal into the headlight and getting rid of the amber lens, just using an amber bulb instead. Moving downwards, the bumpers are a bit different. The 996.1 is a much smoother design, it's a much cleaner shape. The 996.2, its cheeks are a bit more puffed out for a little better radiator cooling, a little more cooling to the brakes. Moving on down the car to the rear, the side skirts are going to be relatively close to the same, and the rear bumper is going to carry a body line from the front on the 996.1 that it isn't going to carry on the 996.2. But really, the biggest differences are going to come between models and which car you're looking at. So let's get into that. Diving into the models, the 996.1 only had two choices. You either had your Carrera or your Carrera 4. Your Carrera is your two-wheel drive, rear-wheel drive Carrera body with the 3.4 liter M96 engine. And the Carrera 4 is the same exact car, just fitted with all-wheel drive. Both cars were available in coupe and convertible models. Moving on to the 996.2, there were quite a bit more. The first model to debut for the 996.2 was the Turbo. It features a wider body than all other 996.1 Carrera models, and it is easily identified by the air scoops for the intercoolers on each quarter panel. It features the 996.2 headlights, unique bumpers, and a larger rear wing for more downforce at speed. Moving on from that, the Carrera and Carrera 4 returned in 2002, along with two new models, the Carrera 4S and the Targa. The Targa, making its return from the 993, continues on with the large retractable glass roof and hatchback rear window. The Carrera 2 is just an updated version of the 996.1. It features a larger 3.6 liter M96 engine and makes about 20 more horsepower. The Carrera 4, same thing, continues on with the all-wheel drive drivetrain from the 996.1. The 996.2 Carrera 4S is an all-new model. It features the wider body of the turbo along with its brakes and suspension, but the engine and transmission out of the standard 996.2 Carrera. At the top of the 996 range were the GT models. First up is the GT3, the first GT3 Porsche brought to America. It features its own unique bumpers, track-oriented suspension, larger brakes, a large fixed rear wing, and a GT1 Le Mans-based 3.6 liter engine. Moving up from the GT3 is the monstrous GT2. Based on the 996 Turbo, it uses a rear-wheel drive drivetrain and track-oriented suspension, and Porsche's first street car with carbon ceramic brakes, along with unique bumpers and a large rear wing to deliver the fastest 996 model. Hanging out the back of the 996.1 is Porsche's first water-cooled engine in a 911. Dubbed the M96, it displaces 3.4 liters and produces 296 horsepower and 258 pound-feet of torque. Moving on from the air-cooled motors, this new M96 features twice the camshafts and twice the number of valves, along with the water cooling. This was done in the name of performance, but also to bring the engine into the modern age and align it with the modern emission standards. While powerful and free revving, the early M96 engine featured in the 996.1 had some reliability issues. Cylinder bore scoring, D-chunk engine block cracking, the infamous IMS bearing issue, and water pump problems plagued the early 996s fairly heavily. While they didn't affect all engines, and most have been taken care of, these are definitely things you're going to need to know if you're ever thinking about ownership. For the 996.2, Porsche continued to use the M96 engine in the Carrera, Carrera 4, and the Carrera 4S. Now displacing 3.6 liters, it produced around 20 more horsepower and 15 more pound-feet of torque than the outgoing 3.4 liter. Unfortunately, the issues that plagued the earlier 3.4 liter do carry over to the 3.6. Again, while most have been taken care of, these are issues you should know about. Moving on to the 996 Turbo, you have the M96.70. While sharing the M96 name, it's a fundamentally different engine than that found in the Carrera. This engine uses the air-cooled engine block, crankshaft, and connecting rods from the 993 or 964 base 911, and a set of water-cooled cylinder heads and cylinders. This engine design is based off of that from the Le Mans winning 98 911 GT1 race car. Strapped to the M96.70 are two air-to-air intercoolers and two turbochargers. Along with lower compression, the turbochargers help the M9670 to produce 415 horsepower and around the same torques. Thanks to its Le Mans winning design, the 996 Turbo engine features none of the unreliability issues that plague the early normally aspirated Carreras. Slung out of the back of the 996 GT3 is the M96.79. It shares the same Metzger-based design as the 996 Turbo engine, but without the turbochargers. Instead, it uses higher compression pistons, much larger camshafts, and much higher flowing cylinder heads to scream all the way up to 8,200 RPM, where it produces 380 horsepower and 284 pound-feet of torque. This is a very motorsports-based design and shares a lot of its components with the 996 GT3 Cup cars. Fitted to the back of the GT2 is the M9670S. A modified version of the engine found in the 996 Turbo uses larger intercoolers, larger camshafts, and larger turbochargers to pump out 456 horsepower and 457 pound-feet of torque. Now that we talked about the engines in the 996s, let's talk about their transmissions. So there were really two transmission options for the non-GT 996s. You had your standard 6-speed manual built by Getrag and your 5-speed automatic that Porsche called the Tiptronic. The 6-speed manual transmission used in the 996 stayed pretty much the same throughout its production. 1999, with the cable throttle, was the only year you could have optioned a mechanical limited slip differential. All other 996s featured PSM, Porsche Stability Management, instead. The automatic transmissions in the 996.1 were made by ZF, a 5 HP, 5-speed automatic, and uses special software to read the driver's driving habits and adjust its shift points accordingly. The 996.2 still uses a 5-speed automatic transmission that Porsche called a Tiptronic, but this box is made by Mercedes. It's their 5G Tronic 722.6 model. It's quite a bit more reliable than the earlier ZF box and is infinitely more rebuildable. Moving on from that, you have your different drive lines. So both transmission options can be found with rear-wheel drive or all-wheel drive. Both use center differentials and a drive shaft to send power forward to a front differential that splits its power to the two front wheels. So all the Metzger-based models, the Turbo, the GT2, and the GT3, use very similar transmissions. It's similar transmission cases with additional oil cooling and beefier gears to handle the increased power produced by the Metzger-based engines. The GT3 uses a shorter ratio and shorter gearing for its much higher revving, normally aspirated M96, while the Turbo and GT2 use longer gearing to take advantage of all that turbocharged torque. Both the GT models only were available with the 6-speed manual, although the Turbo was available with the 5G Tronic Mercedes 5-speed Tiptronic transmission. Moving on to the suspension found in the 996, it's an evolution of the design found in the 993. The front suspension uses a McPherson strut design, while the rear uses a multi-link. Together, they give the 996 a far friendlier handling characteristic than the earlier air-cooled models. The suspension on all of the normally aspirated Carreras is quite soft from the factory. The cars sit pretty high, and the suspension is great for daily driving or long commutes, but not so much for canyon carving. For the more sport-oriented driver, Porsche offered the Sport Suspension Package. With the code M030, it features lower and stiffer springs, different shocks, and larger sway bars to give the car a more sporty stance. For the 996.2, Porsche also offered the X73 Suspension Package. It takes the M030 package a step further, adding even shorter and stiffer springs and upgraded dampers to give the 996 far sharper handling characteristics, much more on point with a track-oriented vehicle. The X73 package was also available for the Turbo, but went by the X74 designation. The suspension found in the 996 GT3 is far sharper than anything given to the normally aspirated Carreras. It's essentially a race car for the road. It features adjustable control arms, height-adjustable coilovers made by H&R, and adjustable sway bars front and rear so you can dial in your suspension setup at the track. The 996 GT3 is about the rawest modern 911 you're going to find. It's got no traction control, no stability control, it's just some ABS, U, and 3 pedals. The other GT model, the GT2, uses the same basic suspension setup as the GT3, sharing its adjustable coilovers and adjustable control arms and sway bars. But the springs and sway bars are a little bit different to work with the different requirements from the twin turbocharged engine. The 996 Carreras use the smallest brakes of the 996 lineup. They feature black 4-piston Brembo calipers front and rear with a 318mm front disc and a 299mm rear. The Carrera 4S and the Turbo use slightly larger red 4-piston calipers front and rear with a 330mm disc found on both ends. The GT3 and GT2 use 6-piston front calipers and 4-piston rears with a front 350mm disc and a rear 330mm disc. The 996 GT2 is the outlier of the group. It uses Porsche's carbon ceramic brakes as standard, featuring a 6-piston yellow front caliper and a 4-piston rear. These brakes are incredibly light, but incredibly expensive. You might be thinking to yourself, hey, if I have a standard Carrera, I want these bigger brakes, let me just grab those. Unfortunately, that's not going to be the case. Only the normally aspirated Carreras with the 318mm discs up front use a 130mm bolt spacing. The Turbos and the GT3s use 142mm bolt spacing. To get the larger brakes from the Turbo or GT3 model, you're going to need to swap the entire suspension knuckle. Moving to the inside of the 996, Porsche carried over their budget-minded approach. A lot of the materials are plastic or vinyl, and over the years have aged not so well. Many can become brittle or creaky, and the vinyls can start pulling back and need replacement. The seat faces are leather, though the sides are vinyl. Full leather interiors were optional on the Carreras and standard on the Turbo. While it may not seem like your typical 911 interior, it still carries the quintessential 5-gauge layout that all 911s share. Moving on to 996.2, the interior shape remains very much the same as the early car, but the overall quality of materials improves greatly. Porsche offered several different interior choice for options, from carbon trim to wood trim to aluminum trim, 3 different types of seats, a couple different steering wheels, and a bunch of different soft touch materials. No interior of any 996 is ever going to be the same, so look around and find the options that work best for you. While wood or carbon trim may seem appealing up front, if you ever have to replace one of those parts, it's going to cost you quite a bit of money. So after all this, should you buy a 996? Well, for me, my answer is yes. Although the early normally aspirated models have some tricky engine issues to get past, the chassis is sublime and they offer a driving experience for the money that no other car can really achieve. As daily drivers or as track cars, you can set up your 911 any way you want, and with 5 or 6 different models in the range, there are plenty of 911s to choose from. We hope you enjoyed this buyer's guide, and if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. As always, like, comment, subscribe, and don't be afraid to hit that bell. We'll see you next time.